Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the President's Fall Town Hall. I'm Lindsay Fair. I'm UVic's Associate Vice President of Communications and Marketing and a fairly new Islander. I will be your MC for today's Town Hall. And let me just run through a few housekeeping items. Live captioning and sign language interpretation are both available today, as you've probably seen. To access captioning, click on the live transcript icon at the bottom of the screen. We are recording this webinar, as you would have seen when you entered, for those members of our community who cannot join us today. So let me introduce what we're going to cover here today in the Town Hall. Kevin, our president, will walk us through some impressive initiatives and events that happened over the last year, moving into some exciting strategic initiatives and operational updates currently underway. He will sum up his presentation with an update on the strategic plan, and we will then move into the Q&A session with the entire UVic executive team. Fresh off the operating table with a new knee to dance on, I will pass it over to Kevin Hall, our president now.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks for the introductions, and thanks to everybody for joining me today. It's really exciting to have our first town hall of the fall season at school. And I'd like to start us off by acknowledging land and language and respect and acknowledge the Lekwungen speaking peoples on whose traditional territory the university stands, and to the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanich people whose relationships with the land continues to today. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and also pledge to walk the path to reconciliation together. A lot of work ahead of us, but we're committed as an institution to make sure we work towards restoring the rights of Indigenous peoples in this region and in this country. Before we begin, I'd actually like to take a moment to pay tribute to a valued colleague who we lost this year, someone who was very close to many of us. Mike Thomas provided audio-visual support and managed events like this for the past 7 years here at UVic. Anyone that was lucky enough to have worked with Mike knew him to be an amazing source of kindness, of positivity, and of patience. He made UVic a better place to work and study, and he'll be greatly missed by all of us. I also wanted to start off, I'm going to do something unusual. I'm going to thank the tech team ahead of time. The tech team has put this fantastic event together today. And it would normally run without a hitch. But the hitch today, if there are any, are all my responsibility. I'm sitting here on my bed where I've been for the last 4 weeks recovering from a knee replacement surgery. And so I've just turned on the ice machine. That's going to keep it nice and cool. I've taken the meds that apparently I can take and not be too loopy. And I'm strapped in for the next hour, but I'm not sure how this will turn out, but please bear with me. I'll try my best, but thanks to the tech team for really making this happen. And I thought I'd really start off by thanking all of you that are here to join us today. There's 335 and counting going up here. We're expecting 400 to 500 people to this town hall today. So thanks for joining us. It's fantastic to see so many people interested in what's going on at the institution. And this is being recorded so that anybody else that hasn't been able to join us will be able to see this. The whole leadership team at the university is here today, and I'd like to take an opportunity for my colleagues to give you a wave, and I'll start off with Quotsiamat Rabina Thomas, our Vice President Indigenous. There's Chris Horbachewski, who's our Vice President External Relations. Elisa Kalinchuk, who's our Vice President Research and Innovation. Christy Simpson, our Vice President Finance and Operations. And Carrie Anderson, our University Secretary. And I'm thrilled that they're all here to join us today. And we've got one new visitor to these town halls, and I'd really like to welcome our new Provost and Vice President Academic, Elizabeth Croft. And Elizabeth joins us after having a lap around the Pacific, if you like, where she started at UBC, where she was many years a professor of engineering and associate dean, and the NSERC Chair for Women in Science for BC and the Yukon. She quickly, after that, flicked down to Australia, where she was the Dean of Engineering, a large faculty at a very well-respected university, Monash University, and we're absolutely thrilled that she's agreed to come and join us on Vancouver Island at the University of Victoria. A fun fact about Elizabeth and that I found out is somehow she enjoys both Star Wars and Star Trek. She's able to bridge that cultural divide and bring people together. And we think that's a skill that's going to be very useful as she navigates the stormy waters of higher education in Canada and globally. So congratulations, first of all, Elizabeth, on being appointed as a provost, and we're really looking forward to what you'll contribute to the institution. So as Lindsay said, we're going to look back a little bit. We're going to look at today, and we're going to look to the future over the next 15, 20 minutes or so. And I thought we'd start off with some highlights from the past year. And we're going to start off by looking at this amazing building, Student Housing and Dining. You've all seen this open this year in September. It's the first of our new housing buildings that are open this fall, with 398 bedrooms and a brand new 600-seat dining room hall. Once completed, the two buildings will provide 738 extra spaces for students on our campus. And we all know housing is a prime issue for us, and I'll talk about that a little later on. With leading edge sustainability features, it'll be UVic's first passive house design. I hope you've all had a chance to see this amazing space and go and check out the food options at the Cove, because that's there not just for the students and residents, that's there for all of us. And you know, I'm not going to lie, I'm sort of, you know, I guess conflicted between two favorites, the pizza and the shawarma, but I think at this point in time, the shawarma wins out for me. So go give the Cove a real tryout. I thought I'd also talk a little bit about our CFEL Victoria, which is something people still don't quite understand what the acronym is, but this is a United Nations Institute for Training and Research. CFEL is a French acronym standing for the Center for the International Formation of Authorities and Leaders. It allows us to join 24 like-minded institutions around the globe. The real purpose is to develop and strengthen our ability to respond to challenges and to facilitate institution to institutional partnerships, but to really build training around the sustainable development goals and to allow our students, our staff and faculty, but also our local community, the K-12, our governments, our local businesses, on understanding how the SDGs can be an important part of their day-to-day operations, and how we use the SDGs to really make this an equitable planet where we share the planet, we share the wealth in the planet. The second piece around CFEL, which is really exciting, it allows us to deliver training activities that are built around the United Nations Declaration on the Rights for Indigenous Peoples. And in fact, our focus areas for CFEL will include oceans, climate, sustainability and innovation, but also decolonization, Indigenous knowledge, and global health and well-being. And we're already off to a roaring start under the fantastic leadership of Crystal Tremblay, who's the current director at CFEL. And Crystal's currently engaging with CFELs right across this planet to really deliver some high quality programs to the University of Victoria and to the City of Victoria. I thought I'll touch also on our innovation hubs. And just recently we opened what's called the UVic Bioinnovation Hub. It's a collaborative workspace in Saanich where entrepreneurs and life science organizations can connect with UVic researchers and students with our equipment and tools to share resources and to really showcase new technologies. Some of the partners are private sector, some are government partners, some are provincial government partners, and there's some seriously talented alumni and UVic researchers involved in this Bioinnovation Hub. And this is actually the third innovation hub in our innovation network that's being run by our Vice President, Research and Innovation. And we're trying to find a catchy name for the innovation network. We're not quite there yet, but we have an innovation hub for women and entrepreneurs down at the Quench co-shared working space in the city. And of course, we have our Coast Capital Center on our land at the university. So this is a great way of engaging the community. It's a great way of providing skills to our student, staff, and faculty, but also getting out and delivering upskilling and reskilling to much of the workforce around Victoria. I thought we'd flip now to the present. There's some amazing things rolling out at the university this year as we speak. And I'll start with the Equity Action Plan. And after 8 months of consultation and development within the university community, the university's Equity Action Plan has been launched. I'm really excited to see this plan unfold and would really want to express my gratitude to everyone that's been involved in this really difficult work and bringing the plan together. And a big shout out to Casbria Dewis and the team at EQHR, along with the amazing student, staff, and faculty who co-created the plan using equity-centered design. It's a really important piece of truth-telling for us at our university. We now have a much clearer picture of the barriers faced by members of our community, and we've got strong guidance on how to productively address some of these issues. We'll pop the link to this website in the chat so you can see all the details and access the reflection and action guides that will help all of us individually and the units across campus to explore how best to incorporate the plan and work towards a campus community that's more inclusive, it's welcoming, equitable, and more supportive. And I want to remind you to be sure to take full advantage of the events offered in the upcoming 5 days of action, which is a perfect time to explore, to learn, reflect, and have dialogue, and to engage and take actions on creating a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable campus and community. I'm not sure if anybody saw this in the news a couple of months ago, but the province of British Columbia announced a $100 million investment towards the development of a collaborative West Shore post-secondary campus in downtown Langford. The collaboration is between the BC government, the City of Langford, Royal Roads University, Camosun College, UVic, and the Sauk School District. The idea behind the West Shore campus is to lift participation rates in the West Shore, where participation rates are almost half of what they are in the city of Victoria and Saanich. This is a really exciting opportunity for us to collaborate with those partners, to really look at how education is delivered, to really look at how we can increase accessibility to education, but also access to education. For us, we're going to start offering first and second year courses in computer science and software engineering, eventually in humanities, fine arts, and some of the social sciences. But I think the really key challenge ahead is how do we work with Camosun and Royal Roads to actually look at how 3 institutions can deliver state-of-the-art learning opportunities for students, not only from the West Shore, but from our campus as well. This opportunity should allow our students to have the flexibility of taking courses on either campus that really complement our existing programs. And we'll hear more about this as this building gets constructed and it opens in 2024. There'll be lots more coming from the Provost's office on how this will work for us at UVic. I thought I'd also give us a quick update on reputational rankings. And as you know, according to the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings, we were ranked 12th in the world against the overall commitments to advancing the UN Sustainability Development Goals. And that's an absolute accomplishment for the University of Victoria that we should be proud of, 12th in the world. And in fact, we ranked as high as 2nd in the world for individual SDGs. For our work in climate action, we were 2nd. And I think that's something we should all be proud of. We're also consistently ranked #1 in Canada for making research accessible to the public. And we are now known as Canada's best comprehensive university for preparing students for the global workplace. We continue to be in the top of the Maclean's rankings, ranking 2nd this year in comprehensive universities. And just recently, we're in the 300 to 350 group in the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. And that's a testament to all of you that work and study at UVic. So thanks everybody for helping us get that recognition that we deserve. I'll finish up with where we are now with a budget update. And of course, I hope most of you were able to read through the budget update sent last week. As you know, enrollment has been challenging this year as the world continues to deal with the impacts of the pandemic, including a changing international student enrollment dynamics and study permit constraints. We've all experienced declines in enrollment that directly affect our current budget. And the resulting budget challenges this year have been difficult. It's important to note that UVic has not been alone in this, and most post-secondary institutions in this province and across the country are experiencing similar challenges. I want to thank our leaders at the university, in the faculties and in the administrative units for their hard work in finding the approximate shortfall, which is around $16 to $17 million, which is not a small issue for us at UVic. I also want to thank the entire university community for their efforts in getting us to this point where we can actually have a balanced budget, and we are required by law to have a balanced budget. It's been difficult, and we've been successful in finding a means to handle the shortfalls for this year. We know that the hiring, hold, and review process has been particularly challenging, and as difficult as it is, it's been fundamental to our ability to address our current budget challenge. It won't be in place forever, and I'm hopeful that as our enrollment picture becomes clearer in the year ahead, we can ease back from it. our ability to respond to dynamic enrollment circumstances, and the resulting revenue shortfalls will be fundamental to our success in years to come. And we've shown our adaptability and our resilience through the pandemic, and I have every confidence that we'll be successful in continuing with that spirit as we work to ensure that we have long-term financial stability for the institution. So what's up for looking ahead? I wanted to start off with micro-credentials and ways of offering people to upskill, to reskill, ways of looking at how our current students and our alumni can have learning opportunities, ways of looking at how we can contribute to the training of the workforce in this province as the workforce looks for about 1 million people over the next 10 years to fill the jobs of the future. Micro-credentialing may be a way to support revenue diversification, which of course is one of the opposites of having to reduce cost, is actually increasing our revenues during times of hard revenues. But it's not just about revenue diversification. It's about a community service. It really has the potential to reduce the barriers to accessing education. And I think there's huge opportunities, both countrywide and locally, for micro-credentialing. Plenty of examples worldwide for us to explore. We can partner with organizations, communities, not-for-profits and businesses, and others around the globe to offer micro-credentials as a form of courses and programming. And we're currently exploring opportunities with the faculties and with continuing studies. We're looking at how we create interdisciplinary opportunities, including credit and not-for-credit options that can ladder into stackable certificates, stackable diplomas and degrees. Lots of exciting opportunities to explore ahead. And the BC government is very supportive, in fact, funding some of this work in micro-credentials, and it will be a big part of our future. I wanted to also address future housing options. As we know, many members of our community are facing challenges in finding suitable housing in Victoria. We've just finished gathering information through an employee housing survey, which I hear has over 2,500 people responding. And our students are also undertaking a student housing survey. We've engaged the Board of Governors in looking at opportunities of how we can utilize university land holdings to develop housing and support commercial uses that will increase the supply of housing in the region and to establish new sources of revenue diversification for the university. And providing additional housing will also help us support in attracting and retaining employees so they can grow their careers at UVic. We're keen to explore opportunities for new spaces to support Indigenous communities in the region and to further strengthen our relationship and support the communities on our campus. The university continues to work towards the completion of student housing and dining project, building number 2, and that'll open in the summer, next summer, with 385 additional beds available for the students next fall. So as I say, we're beginning to explore all these different options. They're things that are going to take us time, but we're committed to try to help be a part of the solution to housing in Victoria and the Capital Region District. Housing in our region is going to continue to challenge our students and our employees, and we're working hard to really determine how best we can contribute to these solutions. I thought I'd end on transnational education, which is something that's a relatively new thing for Canadian universities. And this is something that's been going on globally for years, particularly amongst European universities, UK universities, Australian universities. And that's taking our high quality programs and delivering them offshore in markets where high quality education is required. High quality education is desired. It offers a cheaper alternative, perhaps, than coming to Canada to study for a degree. But transnational education also builds a global profile. It builds us connections. It builds us with like-minded institutions that want to solve the biggest social, environmental, and economic challenges that our planet faces. It connects us to the big global crises. And so we're going to be pursuing opportunities for UVic, opportunities that fit UVic, opportunities that are right for UVic with transnational education. Other things we're currently working on include a post-secondary funding model review that the province is undertaking right now. We're finalizing the engineering and computer science expansion, and we're finalizing the work on the National Centre for Indigenous Laws and Fraser Building renovation. Tons of things going on our campus all the time. I thought I'd finish with just an update on the strategic plan. As you know, we started this process just over a year ago, in fact, and our first meeting was with our Indigenous Community Engagement Council. We've been meeting extensively over the last year. We've had over 6,000 engagements at 62 events. We've had 2,900 online submissions, as you can see on this slide. We've had about 10 or 11 pop-ups for students to get their understanding for how they think UVic can contribute to society in the future. We've met with every faculty and division council meetings. We've had 5 town halls, bang the table, and we've had a number of significant meetings with our Indigenous students, staff, and faculties. So we've been out, if you like, in this engagement process of really trying to hear what the institution wants. Our goal is to build this high-level plan that will weave together our current institutional plans, like the Equity Action Plan, Aspirations 2030, our research plan, the Climate Action and Sustainability Plan, and our new Indigenous plan. We want to weave those together into a plan, overall arching plan for the institution, which really signals where we want to go as a university and where we want to contribute to society, both locally, nationally, and internationally. The plan will be underpinned by a vision, a pledge, some guiding principles, and some themes. And you'll be hearing more about the vision, the pledge, and the guiding principles over the next few weeks. But today I really wanted to focus on the themes. The implementation of the plan will occur over the next 5 years, but the implementation is going to require all of us to find our own place in this plan. As we've been working through the 6,000 pieces of feedback we've got over the past few years, a number of key emerging themes have really surfaced to the top. And I wanted to speak a little bit about those today. The first is respecting the rights of all. And we've been gifted a St. Jothan name by Elder John Eliot, and that is Ato Nuel, which means working with respect for the rights of each other and showing respect for one another. We're working with Elmer George on a Lekwungen name for this theme. This theme moves beyond individual and collective rights and focuses on how we are going to act with one another, how we're going to be with one another, with the land and the waters, with all living beings, in right relationships and working with respect. It's going to call on all members of the UVic community to learn about and understand and respect their relationship with the traditional laws and protocols and peoples of these lands and waters. Respecting the local nations, honoring the teachings we carry with each of us, and we'll center Indigenous ways of knowing and being in teaching, learning, research, and service and wellness. For people, place, and planet is another one of our themes, and this supports and empowers people to exist more sustainably and equitably and commit to climate action and improving the well-being of our communities and our planet. It focuses on elevating UVic as a recognized leader in sustainable systems that communities, organizations, and governments turn to for their innovative strategies and solutions to pressing climate, geopolitical, humanitarian challenges, and those facing us on the planet. It helps us put a focus on people. Cultivating change and transformation was something that resonated with a lot of people. We used to say universities move slower than the glaciers, but of course with climate change, I think the glaciers have us beat now. But we want to change that. We want to change the narrative to let people explore, take a risk, explore new things, explore new ways of doing things, transforming the institution. It recognizes that small actions can be significant and new ideas can change everything. Innovation's built on flexibility, experience, and creativity. And that's where change starts. And it means we want to be innovative across our research, our teaching, our practices, and our process. This could look like continuously reimagining what we do and how we do it. It doesn't mean blowing everything up, but it means rather looking at fundamental shifts in thinking, in processes, and quality improvements. Our last plan, our last theme, which was just absolutely evident from everybody we talked to, was the importance of partnering and the importance of being true partners, meaningful partners, of not being people that stand back and profess to be the experts, but being people who want to work with our local community groups, with our businesses, our governments, to really make changes. It looks at breaking down silos and barriers amongst our faculties and divisions, amongst administrative units on campus, between academic and administrative units, between the campus and the community, between UVic and our international partners, our alumni, research institutions, governments, and more. It's truly about partnering to make positive change. We're hoping these themes will help propel us forward. And while teaching, research, and outreach remain our core mission, and the core mission of every university, these themes, I think really will help articulate what makes UVic different, what makes us stand out and rise above. Throughout October, we've had a writer trying to bring all these pieces of the plan together. The plan's been developed by different groups across campus with different voices, and we want to bring the plan into one voice, a voice that resonates with all of us on campus, not a voice that resonates with a particular group of us on campus, but a voice that speaks to all of us. And so the plan's being brought together to put into a cohesive and consistent voice. In early November, we're going to be really excited to share the first full draft of this plan with the vision, with the pledge, with our principles, and with the themes. And this will go out to students, staff, and faculty across campus. And we invite you to submit feedback, which we'll share with members of Senate and the Board of Governors. In January, we're going to present the final plan to Senate and then go to board for full approval. And we hope that this plan will be implemented and put in place by February next year. Plans are already in development for February launch to make sure that it's widely received and adopted across campus. So a lot more work still to be done, but please take every opportunity you can when the draft version of the plan comes out in the next few weeks to get engaged with the plan and offer us our feedback. So those are some of the really exciting things I think that are going on at the high level across the institution. And hopefully that resonates with you, our UVic community. You probably heard enough from me now, so we'd really like to hear from you. And so we're going to flick over now to the question and answer session. And I want to, first of all, thank all of you that submitted questions when you registered for this. I believe we had over 200 questions submitted as part of the registration process. And so we'll honor some of those questions and tackle those. But we're also going to open the floor up to Slido that you can see there, where you can answer your own questions. And I think Lindsay's going to tell us a little bit about this. And we're going to bring the executive team back in to help answer some of the questions that are relevant to those in the profile. So Lindsay, back over to you.
Thanks, Kevin. In my 6 months here at UVic, I have seen such a flurry of activity. I have seen so many ways that UVic is punching above its weight, as I've been told and heard and seen with my own eyes. The strategic plan is just one way. We are going to do things a little different here. 20 plus years in higher ed, I didn't think another strat plan could do that, could get me excited. But so far, this one is shaping up and has me pretty excited to think about how I can do my work differently. So moving into the Q&A segment of this town hall, we will be using the online app Slido, as you can see here on the screen, to collect your questions if you didn't pre-submit one or wasn't already covered in Kevin's presentation. The executive team, Christy, Elizabeth, Chris, Lisa, Robina, Carrie, have all joined us and are back here to help answer your questions. Many of you likely have used Slido before, but for those that haven't, you can use your phone or your computer. With your phone, you can scan the QR code on the screen or simply go to slido.com. Once you're in Slido or on slido.com, you type in the event code, which is UVic, all one word, all lowercase. Now, before you post your question, this is perhaps my need to be organized and succinct. We ask that you review your questions or the questions that are already there. And if there's already a question that's similar, perhaps just give it a little thumbs up, which will upvote that question. And we'll get a sense that this is a really important question to our community. And we'll prioritize those questions getting answered. So that'll save us time and help us be a little bit more succinct in answering as many people as we can as possible today. We will try and highlight top voted questions, but we're also going to focus a little bit on variety to make sure everybody that showed up today out of the 400 or 400 plus, I guess, attendees today, hopefully get the topics that are important to them covered. We do ask that you keep your questions succinct and relevant to the conversations today. And panelists, VPs, I ask you to do the same if you can keep your answers succinct as well so that we can get through as many as possible. To all those participating, please be respectful with your post and remember to not share any personal information as everyone may see it on the big screen. We did ask in the event registration what questions were top of mind for you, which helped us prepare Kevin, for Kevin to prepare his responses today. But before we move into the Slido submissions, I thought we could start with discussing the budget, as it was a popular topic during registration. Kevin did answer most of the questions that did come up in the pre-submissions about the budget, but Christy, I thought you could help with a few as well. So Christy, here's one for you. In order to address the potential deficit, we had to make many adjustments, one of which Kevin talked about, was the hiring hold and review. Can you speak to how that is going so far? And what are the principles that are being used to make those decisions?
Yeah, thank you for that, Lindsay. Just make sure people can hear me. Yeah. Okay, first, I just, as Kevin did, want to thank people and acknowledge that I know that that's a difficult thing to have a hiring hold, but completely necessary given the reduced tuition environment we're in. So the process we've developed is we have a weekly review at executive, and what I want people to take away is that we do have an exception process. So while there is a hold in place, there's a way for positions to move forward, and there's criteria for that. So each week, executive looks at a number of exceptions, and there's 5 criteria they use to look at them. One, is it required to maintain critical operations? So we've had a few under this bucket. Payroll, custodial services comes to mind. Is it required to maintain regulatory or health and safety? And so we had a position that was required under legislation that got approved under there. Required to maintain core teaching. So we have a blanket for sessional positions, and some faculty positions where there's been high growth or high enrollment have been approved. Ancillary operations, they're funded by their own revenue. And so those positions that have come forward have been approved, some in food services and student housing, for example. And lastly, I want to make sure people understand that this is the hiring hold and review is with respect to operating funds. So things like research, principal investigators are still able to move to go forward and hire positions funded by their own research funds. So executive will continue to look at these exceptions on a weekly basis until we move through the budget process for 23-24.
Thanks, Christy. I heard through the grapevine that no one is exempt, no office is exempt from this. And perhaps one of the ones that got turned away was directly from the president's office. So no office at UVic is exempt from following this process.
That is true.
Oh, good. You cleared up that perhaps myth or rumor. And one follow-up, Christy, before I actually ask Elizabeth to tell us some ideas from her experience. But what has the outcome been of all the actions that we've taken across campus to help address the potential budget deficit to make sure we're in a better place now? And are we in a better place now?
Yeah, so thank you. As Kevin mentioned, our enrollment was lower than our budget expected it to be or predicted it to be. And so that left us with a shortfall. So all the work that leaders have done have allowed us to shore up that tuition and ensure that we won't run a deficit, which we're not allowed to under legislation. So I think I will give my thanks as well for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Christy. So I'll let you off the hot seat. And Elizabeth, I would love to hear from you. As you settle in here at UVic, you're more new than I am. I thought I was the newbie, but you're more new than I am. You're bringing a wealth of ideas and experience from around the globe that can possibly help with long-term financial stability. So I'd love, how is the university planning for financial renewal, stability, and bringing new ideas to the table for that?
Thanks very much, Lindsay. Yeah, these are important questions, and they're the ones that I'm really focusing, among other things, right now. And I think the key thing is we need to be much more targeted and sharp on our international enrollment. So really putting and working with the faculties about putting the right programs in front of the right students to really attract them and to sell what a wonderful university we have and what are the opportunities for them to come and study with them. So this is work that we are doing with the deans and with the faculties and with our recruitment folks to really sharpen that up. The other thing I think we need to do is to look at the broader market. So this is micro-credentials and the opportunities for professional education as well. We focus really well on 19 to 25-year-olds, but there is a whole bunch of other people out there in industry who want to access the education that we can offer. And so we're working with our colleagues and the faculties to really turn this. And then the last thing I would say is, we have this great opportunity at West Shore. And I think, this is a new opportunity for us to look at different ways of delivering education that's wanted in the province, and that will provide us with the enrollments and income that helps us to invest in the things that we think are so valuable.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. I think those are great ideas, and I'm excited to watch UVic go through some of this transformation. We're going to jump into some of the Slido questions now. So the very first one, Elizabeth, before you're off the hot seat, is actually going to go to you. So you're not out of the hot seat yet. This is about micro-credentials. So will employees be able to do some micro-credentials for free, as I know other institutions have? The question says, as some universities offer a limited number of seats to employees in courses each year for free.
That's a new question. I have not seen that one before. And it's an interesting thing. It tells me that there's a market, which is good if people are interested in taking it. I think one of the things that we're really doing right now is just to try and understand the micro-credential market. Certainly, if we do this, we're doing this to generate revenue, to support all the things that we want to do. So we would have to look at what kind of balance that would work and whether, this could be something, whether this would be a benefit. I can't answer that, but it's a really great suggestion. So I'm going to take it on notice and we'll put that into the mix as we start to work through how we are going to be able to deliver micro-credentials. And as I said, access that group of learners who we've been not accessing before and give them the opportunities in the education that there is demand for.
Lindsay, if I could jump in, it's Christy. We do have a lot of professional development programs through our HR team, and they will be looking to see how our programs align with the introduction of micro-credentials.
Wonderful. Thanks, Christy. That's what I was going to say. I'm sure Kane is on the line today and also taking note of that as well. So our next question, Christy, since you spoke up, this one is for you, actually, and it speaks almost to what you were talking about. Does the University of Victoria plan to continue with remote working agreements?
Yeah, so the really short answer is yes. And we've just recently released, hopefully people will have seen in the checklist, an updated version of the remote working arrangements. A group of people, as is normal at UVic, we had a committee that looked at the pilot and how was it working, and got feedback from employees and leaders alike. And that report, as well as the updated principles, have been posted on our website. So importantly, we've enhanced the ability to go to a full-time remote work if that works for your department and the work that you do. And we've added things like making sure people consider space implications and some other important things as they work through remote working arrangements.
I may be a little biased, but the website looks great for the update.
Credit to the HR team.
Wonderful. Elizabeth, we're going to go back to you. This one is about accessibility. So how does UVic plan to meet our responsibilities under the new BC legislation?
Yeah, thank you. This is a really important question because we know that students want to access courses in a variety of ways, and that there is a lot of latitude actually for faculty to deliver their existing courses, and no changes through Senate are able to answer all of these questions. So, but I do see a lot of opportunity to offer hybrid on online where it makes sense, and so that we will meet our learning objectives, but also to meet the requirements of the Act. And so I think we're going to be working on the education piece. We're going to be working with Christy's office on the physical accessibility pieces. And we're bringing together a working committee to look at all of the aspects of accessibility and how that accessibility really not only serves the whole community, because different learners have different needs. And quite frankly, right now, we do deliver a big range of ways of coming in and doing our education, but we need to really understand that, work with LTSI to bring that up and to show other faculties how this can deliver our learning better. We are a bricks and mortar university, and we will always have people who want to come and be here, and we do need to support that as well. So all of those aspects, the physical plant and the way that we deliver education, it needs to be modernized. And this Act gives us the opportunity to really have a good look at this.
Thanks, Elizabeth. As a newbie, and could you tell me what LTSI is? Just for others.
So it's the learning, teaching, support. I call them, they're the good people that help us make our education better.
Perfect.
That's what
That's-
they are.
That's great. We love our acronyms in higher ed, don't we?
Mm.
Elizabeth, I am not letting you out of the hot seat. The next question is also for you. And this is something I think that you know a lot about with your experience working over at Monash. So if all universities in BC and Canada have been affected by lower enrollments of international students, why is UVic the only one to have installed a hiring freeze? I'm going to interject, hold, and review. How were other universities able to address their budget downfall without resorting to it? And why hasn't UVic been able to?
Okay, so I think this is going to be a me and Christy answer. I will take a first stab at it and then I'll flip to Christy. I would say I don't know if that's actually the case, because I think all universities who are experiencing this are having to address the fact that income is lower. And when you're at a university, 80% of your costs are basically come from employment of people. So to control cost, you have to look at how you manage them. So if I talk to my colleagues around Canada, I know that everybody is taking some type of approach to manage expenses. So they might be calling it something different, but that's the issue that folks are facing. Now, people have experienced the shortfalls in different ways. Some universities also have large endowments that they can pull from to help smooth the way through. We not so much. So those are some of the differences. I also know where I came from in Australia. They didn't pause and review. They actually had losses of staff, and we don't want to go there. So not at all. No. So we, I think, are taking a very responsible approach to make sure that we understand our budget position well and make sure that we're in the right place, so that as things improve, then we can look at things and have the latitude to go forward in the way that we want to.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Over to
Christy,
Christy.
did you want to add to that?
I think the only thing I would add is that the different approaches really reflect different budget models at universities across Canada. And we have a very centralized approach, whereas a lot of them have decentralized, which is what Elizabeth was really getting at. So those type of holding decisions are made decentrally as opposed to a broad policy that we took at UVic.
Wonderful. Thanks, Christy. I appreciate, after working at many institutions going through similar situations, that we may use different language, but we're all approaching similar situations with the same levers. We all have the same levers to pull. The next question is going to put Kevin back in the hot seat right now. Well, good for you, Vic, to have an equity plan. Very exciting time here. The EQHR leadership is very white, as are most leadership positions at UVic. Does UVic plan on addressing the white-dominated space of leadership and use the equity plan to hire more people into leadership roles who are not white?
Yes. I think it's a great question. Thanks, Clinton. And the answer is yes. This is part of the idea of developing this new equity-centered framework for the Equity Action Plan, is to really have a close look at ourselves and actually admit to some of the things that are not right at the institution. And that's what the plan has done. The plan has around 60 different actions. All of us across the institution are responsible for the implementation of many of those actions, and we will start to act on it immediately. And so the answer will be, we will be looking at opportunities to change the look and the diversity of the leadership across this university, not just the leadership at the higher level, but right across the institution. I'm not sure if Carrie Anderson wants to also add something here, but Carrie, as many of you may know, has equity and human rights reporting into her. And I think, the process that was undertaken to build this new equity action plan was unique amongst universities in this country. And I think it's something we should be awfully proud of.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin and Lindsay. And maybe I'll just add to say that we started this plan by listening to members of our community who are from historically marginalized groups. And what we did was we listened to barriers. And one of the barriers that was raised is that our current efforts aren't enough to increase representation on our campus in all populations and all positions. And so we acknowledge that there's work to do. And so there are committed actions that have been identified as priorities in the first steps of implementation of the plan. They're committed both to recruitment, but also to looking at the folks who are here and supporting advancement of folks from historically marginalized communities into leadership positions. And so there are commitments to take action in this space that we hope will respond to the barriers that we heard from folks in our community.
Thanks, Carrie, for jumping in, and thanks, Kevin, for answering that. Our next question is going to bring Chris onto the screen to answer this one. One of the reasons that some students choose not to come here is the challenge of finding affordable housing, as Kevin spoke about a little bit in his presentation. The resident buildings are helpful, but can't support the entire campus. Is UVic working with local municipalities to support housing for all?
Thanks, Lindsay. That's a really good question. And yes, the answer is yes. We're working with municipalities, and I'll say municipalities are working with us because there's two sides to this issue. There is the work we can do on campus to build housing. And this is where municipalities are incredibly supportive of the university and some of the advocacy efforts we've been making targeted towards the provincial government in particular. So recently, the regional mayors, 13 mayors, invited Kevin to their quarterly meeting, and Kevin was able to make a presentation and really challenged the mayors of the municipalities to come on board and help us address some of our own housing challenges. So collectively, they wrote a letter to the Minister of Advanced Education that went to the ministry, and we've seen other groups come on board, the Chamber of Commerce as well, that really encourages the province, the ministry itself, to provide the means and the frameworks for us to continue to develop on-campus housing for our students. So every bed we build on campus is one less bed a student is occupying in the community. And then the other side of this is our encouragement and work with the municipalities to remove their own barriers to increase housing supply in the surrounding municipalities, in particular Oak Bay and Saanich. And so we've seen some changes in Saanich recently, with an increase in the number of unrelated people that are allowed to stay in a common house. And then recently, just before the election, we saw some changes to Oak Bay, zoning that allows for secondary suites, garden suites, of course, increasing the housing supply in the areas around the university. So as Kevin noted in his opening comments, we are really trying to contribute to the solution. We're not looking to others to provide the solution for us. We recognize there's a role for us to play. Part of that is our advocacy and pressure, admittedly, that we put on the municipalities to help us address some of the housing supply issues in the area.
Thanks, Chris. I know housing, as a geographer myself, I recognize that housing is a complex issue, and we're part of a solution, but not the only solution. Elizabeth, this is going back to you to talk about online course selection. Why hasn't UVic done more to provide online sections for each course? I know a lot of international students appreciated online sections, and domestic students appreciate the equity online sections provide for completing higher education. So Elizabeth, can I have you answer that?
Yeah, so a great question. One of the things we are actually looking at is how we can provide the opportunity with the classrooms for people to be able to record lectures and then be able to have those workshop sessions instead, so that the lectures become more like a book and you can listen to that online, and then the interactive work. Now, of course, not all things can be taught online. Many things in engineering, you actually have to be in the lab and experience that. So, it's really about thinking about the balance of what is the best education experience for our students. And actually, one of the things is, as I said before, we really are a university that is bricks and mortar, where students come and they are looking actually for that experience of interacting with other students and with the academics and being in the lab. So those are the kind of things that we need to focus on for some of our delivery. And then, yeah, there's some opportunities where we could be providing online and it would make a lot of sense. So really, it's not about, it's really about finding that right balance. We're working again with our academics and with LTSI, which are the great people that help improve our education, now that that's the definition. And we will be thinking about what is the right educational piece to deliver to the right people. We're also working on transnational education, which is an opportunity to deliver our education into different countries where students don't ever come to UVic, or maybe they do some there and they come here. So there's lots of different opportunities that we're looking at. And it's really about getting the right thing to the students in the way that best helps them to learn. I see Kevin's got his hand up as well.
I was just going to say, Kevin's being a student today and put his hand up. Kevin?
This is a very sort of timely topic. Institutions globally are looking at online, hybrid, these different things. But one of the things I know the BC government's looking at very carefully is actually tech equity, because online will only work if you have tech equity. And there's two dimensions to that. First of all, is all institutions aren't the same. So take an institution like UBC that has its $1.2 billion endowment. Actually, equipping the campus with a lot of tech is much easier than, let's say, a UNBC, where the budgets aren't so big. So that's between institutions, but actually between learners, the tech inequity can be significant. It depends where you're located in this province. It depends, or the world. It depends on what your access is to high-speed bandwidth, if you've even got internet. And so there is a growing concern that online is a great solution sometimes, but it doesn't always solve the equity issue, because it becomes more inequities because of the technology itself. And I think we've really got to work hard to make sure what we do in an online space is something that is obtainable by all of our students.
Thanks, Kevin. I agree. The pandemic certainly brought a bunch of that to light, as we saw some students really struggling to keep up with classes. As a mom, I saw that myself for sure. The next question for you, Kevin, is how does UVic plan on funding these quality of life improvements as part of the strategic plan? And will individual units, departments receive funding to make these changes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a really tough one when we're going through a budget issue at this point in time. In a perfect world where our enrollments are where they need to be, there's always a bit of strategic investment left over at the end of each year, or allocated during each year. And so the hope is we restore our numbers back to where we should be tracking with both our domestic and international students. And we will allocate portions of our budget for some strategic initiatives that are in the plan. The commitment to each of those four themes are really important. And so we will allocate funds that will be available for individual units. There'll be a competitive scenario for some of it. Some will just be made available because some things we have to do, some things we will prioritize higher. We'll work with the deans, we'll work with the unit leaders across the divisions to make sure we address the priorities which move our strategic plan forward. And so the hope is, yes, we will have set aside money that's really important to drive those strategic initiatives.
Thanks, Kevin. So Lisa, this one is for you. As a research-intensive university, what are the big challenges and opportunities to growing our research here at UVic?
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. It's a really big question. I could talk about it for a long time, but I'll try to just maybe offer a few reflections on this, and maybe just start with some of the challenges. I think when I look at our internal challenges here at UVic, I would say as we continue to recruit new faculty who are using state-of-the-art equipment, we know that space is a challenge, and it's a hard one to overcome because creating new spaces is very expensive, and it also takes a lot of time. And so I think, we're trying to think and plan for new spaces on campus, knowing that we need those. And also, I think as we grow and our research revenues are at a historic high, 147 million, that means that we need to think about how we can support that research enterprise with pre-award support, post-award support, streamlining processes. We know that people are asked to fill out a lot of forms, and a lot of that comes from a lot of our partners who require reporting and are imposing increasingly severe regulatory requirements. And so I think internally we're turning our attention to how we can streamline that for faculty and make it easier for people to do their research. And then I think looking externally, just lobbying government to preserve open grant competitions. We're seeing more and more funding opportunities coming that are targeted, and an erosion of the amount of money that's available just for curiosity-led research, which is crucial. And so continuing to lobby for those opportunities. So then on the positive side, the opportunities, I think there are a lot of new funding, exciting funding programs coming down the pipeline. We submitted a $84 million CFREF. If that was to come to UVic, that would be transformational for our Faculty of Engineering, create lots of opportunities for students and for new recruitment. We submitted 2 Canada Excellence Research Chair nominees. If we got one of those, that would be transformational. We have new CRCs coming down the pipeline. We have a new premier in British Columbia. And so I think there may be an opportunity now to maybe turn the dial on the provincial government and how they fund research, and maybe they'll be more interested in putting some matching funding on the table and contributing more significantly to graduate student funding. And then just continuing to raise our profile and talk about all of the great work that we're doing with federal government, with industry, with communities. People want to partner with us, but they need to know what we're good at. And so I think making the effort to tell our story and invite those partners in, that brings expertise to our campus, but it also brings new sources of revenue, attracts students, attracts faculty, and builds our community.
Amazing, Lisa. I have been absolutely blown away by the quality and just the amount of significant research and the impact of our research that we have for such a young and smaller university in Canada. And I think it's getting noticed on global and certainly the domestic stage. It's really impressive how much we're punching above our weight in this category. And I'm with you on let's tell our story more. We have one last question. This is our last question for today. So before I put Robina in the hot seat, if you submitted a question and we didn't get to today, please continue to reach out to your leaders on campus. And I'll talk a little bit more about how you can do that after we let Robina answer this question. Robina, how is the Indigenous plan going to work with the strategic plan? Will they be complementary?
Thanks, Lindsay, and thank everyone for joining us today. And I want to begin by acknowledging that I'm a visitor here on Lekwungen territories. I take seriously every day what it means to live, love, learn on these traditional territories. We made a decision as we were rolling out the strategic plan and the Indigenous plan renewals that we would do those engagement sessions together so that we were both the strategic renewal plan and us were listening to the same groups of folks together. And we did that intentionally so that we could hear and we could make sure that the plans actually could weave together quite well. Atoll Noel, which Kevin talked about, which is the theme for the Indigenous pillar in the plan, really is about us figuring out how we can respect each other and respect all living things. And I think that's such an important concept. And that concept is woven throughout the Indigenous plan. And so we take the concept of Atoll Noel from the strategic framework, and it then is going to be one of the main pillars that we bring into the Indigenous plan. And so they are absolutely complementary. And we've been very, very intentional to ensure that they support each other and can work together. And we've really followed the teachings that were given to us by the elders as we rolled out this plan. And Imistuthan Aichgwalowins, please bring in your good spirit and your good mind. And I think that that's the underpinning of how we've tried to make sure that these two plans will complement each other and will be achievable. And that's been our biggest challenge, is to make sure our plans are achievable and measurable. So thank you so much for the question, Lindsay.
Thank you, Robina. What a good way to end our Q&A session for the town hall. Thank you to everyone that did submit a question. Together, we will make UVic a wonderful place now and for the future. And if you didn't get your question answered, as I said, please work with your leaders to get those questions answered. I do thank all of you for your thoughtful questions, and thanks to the executive for sharing your answers, your insights, and your brilliance and experience. I didn't get to ask a question because I was the MC. So before I hand it back to Kevin for closing remarks, I have one question for you, Kevin. You are perhaps one of the most innovative, dynamic, creative thinkers out there. I have the energy of, many have said, of an Energizer bunny, and I think you could do circles around me. So where do you get your inspiration from? And to be honest, how do you find the time given the role that you have here at UVic?
Well, that's an easy question to answer. You get your inspiration from the 26,000 of us that call UVic home, right? I mean, you get inspiration from the students, the staff, and faculty. There's not a day goes by that I don't meet somebody on campus and I go, wow, that's a great idea, or wow, that's a cool thing. And so, we look at ourselves as a leadership team here as we're here to kind of facilitate what everybody wants to happen at UVic. We're not here to be a roadblock or a speed bump. Sometimes we have to do ugly things like work to a budget. But it actually, the inspiration is the people that come here every day, and that will continue to be for, I think, all of us, the inspiration. So I guess we got to wrap up because we're late. I want to actually thank everybody for all the great questions today. I want to actually thank everybody for joining us. It's great to have another opportunity to connect. If you didn't get a chance to put your questions in or your ideas, you go to the President's suggestion box. It's listed right there. I'm really excited about this academic year. If you walk around campus, you see the buzz. The students are so excited to be back, learning in their classroom, learning from each other. And for that, I want to thank all 5,000 of you who work and call UVic your place of work, faculty and staff, for making that such a special experience for students. And if you see me around campus over the next, well, it probably won't be for the next few weeks, but if you want to give me a hand pushing my walker along, I'll take all the help I can get. I want to also just, again, thank everybody that got involved to put this together today, and to the leadership team at the university. And Lindsay, to you for being the MC as someone new to the university. I think it's fantastic to have you join us. And thanks everybody for joining us, and have a fantastic day.